Robert Redford is almost 90. She was the love of his life. The Hollywood legend, who's been in the business for over 50 years, has experienced many ups and downs throughout his career. Redford has done it all, from cinematic celebrity roles to Oscar-winning work as a director. Since Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid made him a ubiquitous name, he's been one of the most dependable actors on the big screen, having appeared in such classics as Out of Africa and All the President's Men. Redford may appear to be a well-known figure to many, but there's much more to him than the average fan realizes. And his life is as extraordinary as his many performances. Redford is now over 80 years old, which may come as a surprise to those who grew up with him. Throughout his life, he's experienced many difficulties and catastrophes, as well as triumphs and success. These details will provide a more complete portrait of one of cinema's finest actors. Early years. As the founder of the Sundance Film Festival in Utah, where he resides, Redford has always appeared to offer a mature alternative to Hollywood's most mainstream elements. Nevertheless, he was born in Santa Monica. Redford was born on August 18th to Charles Robert Redford Sr. and Martha W. Hart. Robert was the only child of his milkman father, who ultimately became an accountant at an energy company, and his mother. His mother passed away in 1955, but his father remarried and had a son named William with his second wife, giving Robert a stepbrother. Polio. If you followed Redford's career as a director attentively, you may have seen an episode of Cathedrals of Culture that he directed in 2014. In the episode, he highlighted the Salk Institute for Biological Studies in San Diego. Redford explained his reasoning to the Express newspaper, despite the fact that it may appear to be an unusual choice. The Salk Institute was named after Jonas Salk, whose claim to fame was the development of the polio vaccine. This is a connection between Redford and Salk's effort. As a child, Redford genuinely suffered from polio, despite his reputation as a robust and athletic adult. Fortunately, his symptoms were minimal, and he recovered without any enduring complications. However, the experience left an impression on him, and he supports efforts to eradicate the disease. Trouble in school. Nobody can dispute that Robert Redford is intelligent and artistically talented, but he never did well in school. According to him, he had a wandering mind and was constantly ruminating about something else. I've never been an excellent student in my entire existence. My consciousness was completely absent. Underneath the desk, I drew. I sketched images, he told Rolling Stone in 1980. I wasn't learning the way I was supposed to learn, Redford continued, and I believe I realized that my education would occur when I got out into the world and engaged with other cultures, other places, and other languages and had the adventure of exploration. And I thought, that's my education. Crimes and misdemeanors. Not only was Redford a subpar academic as a child, but he was also not exactly a model citizen. In fact, he violated the law multiple times. Don't fret, his days of perpetrating wrongdoings are long past, and he was never been that awful. In a 1980 interview, he acknowledged his disrespectful conduct. As an adolescent, he had stolen hubcaps from automobiles, broken into people's backyards, and used their bathing pools. These minor acts of adolescent defiance resulted in his arrest on multiple occasions, but he never went to prison. Higher education. Despite the fact that education was never Redford's strong trait, he attended the University of Colorado on an athletic scholarship. In addition to being a pitcher for the baseball team, he joined Kappa Sigma. His college years were not flawless, however. After the death of his mother, Redford developed an alcoholic dependence, which interfered with his academic career. He was unable to maintain his scholarship and was forced to withdraw out of school. In 1987, the university awarded him an honorary degree, so everything turned out well. Meeting his match. Meeting Lola Van Wagenen was a highlight of Redford's undergraduate years. They met at the University of Colorado, where she was also a student, and they soon fell in love. However, their relationship was put to the test when Redford pulled out. After abandoning his studies, Redford resolved to travel and spent a year in Europe. At the time, he lived in Italy, Spain, and France, and even studied art in Paris. He and Lola were separated for a year, but their love didn't falter. When he returned, they continued where they had left off. Tying the knot. Having been reunited, they decided to marry. Given that Robert Redford had not completed college and didn't appear to have a promising career ahead of him, it was difficult for Lola Van Wagenen's parents to approve of their daughter's marriage to Redford. However, the couple chose not to seek permission, and in 1958 they fled to Las Vegas to marry in secrecy. However, they did not intend to keep their secret for long. 5 weeks later, they decided to tell everyone, so they invited their closest friends and family and held a second wedding ceremony, this time without any secrecy. A growing family. It didn't take the Redfords very long to establish a family. Lola gave birth to Scott Redford in 1959, and the couple welcomed their first child, Shauna Redford, in 1960. James, their second son, was born in 1962, followed by Amy, their fourth and final child, in 1970. While Robert and Lola raised amazing children, the family suffered a tragic loss when Scott died of sudden infant death syndrome at the age of 2.5 months. It was a tragic reflection of what Martha and Charles Redford endured when their twin daughters passed away before Robert's birth. Son James also had health issues. The death of their first son, Scott, was not the only calamity involving their children's health that the couple had to endure. Only 3 years after Scott's death, their son James was born 7 weeks prematurely and nearly perished from a respiratory condition. After surviving that, he developed ulcerative colitis as a teenager, which necessitated the removal of his colon as well as 2 liver transplants before he turned 30. It was believed to be over, but his liver disease returned in 2018, and he was diagnosed with cancer while awaiting another liver transplant the following year. James passed away at age 58 on January 16, 2020. James was a successful writer and producer in his own right, producing, among other films, the 2009 HBO documentary Man vs. Ford. In addition, he established the James Redford Institute for Transplant Awareness to educate the public about organ donation. Robert Redford, at the age of 85, commented on the loss of his sons. "We were devastated. They led a gorgeous, influential existence and were cherished by many." Love lost and found. Unfortunately, Robert and Lola were unable to maintain their union. The couple divorced in 1985, despite having spent nearly 3 decades together. Their union had to end. Every marriage has its ups and downs, but according to Redford, the death of their son Scott was something they never truly got over. Redford said in a sincere interview, "It was very difficult. We were quite youthful. We knew nothing about SIDS, so your only thought is that you did something incorrectly. As a parent, you have a tendency to place the responsibility on yourself. That leaves a scar that will likely never fully mend." However, Redford would experience love once more when he began dating Sybil Saggers. The couple tied the knot in 2009, but had been living together since the 1990s. A troubled soul. Evidently, Robert kept many things to himself, particularly his emotions. Even his biographer, Michael Callan, who spent 14 years interrogating Redford and had complete access to his family, friends, and decades of private diaries and letters, was unable to convince the actor to discuss his emotional scars. There appears to be something that concerns him. Redford stated, "People believe I've had it simple. That's difficult to tolerate. That's so untrue," he went on to say. "I am not into shared soul searching. Even though he's excellent on screen, it appears he has some inner work to do." First roles. Redford began performing at a tender age and landed his first Broadway role in his early 20s. Even though he had achieved success, the demands of the theater were difficult for a young family due to his training. When his second child was born, he decided to switch to television in order to avoid spending nights away from his wife and children. Redford's transition to television was fortunate, and he appeared on many of the top programs of the time as a guest performer. He appeared on television programs such as The Twilight Zone, Maverick, Perry Mason, and many others. And while he was still a long way from stardom, he was undoubtedly on the right track. Womanizer? Robert Redford was not a philanderer. He was Hollywood's golden child and was adored by many, particularly his female co-stars fell for him one by one. For example, Jane Fonda. Jane Fonda was apparently enamored with Robert. "I was head over heels for Bob. Nothing ever transpired between us, but he was an incredible kisser. I had an insane infatuation. I couldn't wait for the sequences of affection. The only drawback is that he dislikes performing love scenarios." Fonda once discussed her bed sequences with Redford while filming Our Souls at Night on the Ellen DeGeneres show. She stated, "Eventually there is a love scene. I'm pleased with the romantic scenario. I'm disappointed because it was so brief." She joked on another occasion, "I live for sex scenes with Redford." Redford and Streisand. Redford's collaboration with Barbra Streisand in The Way We Were was one of his most memorable on-screen pairings. The film was another enormous success, becoming one of the most popular romantic films of the 1970s and featuring an Oscar-winning theme song and Best Original Dramatic Score. There were 4 additional nominations, including one for Best Actress for Streisand and Redford starred in his third film directed by Sidney Pollack, with many more to come, including 3 Days of the Condor. The screenplay was written by Arthur Lawrence, who also wrote the autobiographical novel. A devoted dad. In 1983, Redford's daughter, Shauna's partner, the University of Colorado student Sid Wells, was shot by Thane Smika, a 24-year-old roommate who had recently moved into his apartment. Sid had been having difficulty getting Thane to pay his rent, and the shooting took place the day before the rent was due. Redford halted production on The Natural, the sports film he was starring in at the time, so that the entire family could attend Sid's interment, and Shauna quit school as a result of the incident. Ages like wine. The hit film Indecent Proposal from 1993 was about a billionaire, portrayed by Robert Redford, offering a woman, portrayed by Demi Moore, $1 million to sleep with him after he sees her and her husband lose their savings in Las Vegas, and how that affects their struggling marriage. The story poses an intriguing, not to mention titillating what-if question for many viewers, but it's also another instance in which Redford's attractiveness somewhat turns the tables. Even though he was approaching 60 when the film was released, he was still one of the most desirable men in the world, which alters the equation significantly. Retirement. Redford retired in 2018 following the release of his final film, The Old Man and the Gun, though he has since made cameo appearances in Avengers Endgame and the Watchmen series. The film industry is no longer a part of his existence, and he finds tremendous solace in living in nature and spending time with his grandchildren. After 6 decades of acting, directing, and producing innumerable amazing performances in films, he has surely earned his retirement. However, even though he's ceased creating movies, audiences will continue to watch his iconic performances.